The forest has always been a place of mystery, a world untouched by time, where shadows stretch long and whispers travel through the trees. But some stories, they are not just campfire tales. Some encounters leave a permanent scar on those who survive them. Deep in the woods, where the silence is deafening and the night feels endless, a figure watches, tall, faceless, and inescapable. They say Slenderman is just a myth, a creation of the internet. But then, why do so many people claim to have seen him? Tonight, we bring you 4 chilling stories of campers who ventured into the wrong woods, only to realize something else was out there, watching, waiting, and once you see him, you never escape. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look too long into the darkness. He might be looking back at you. Story 1. The Vanishing Camp. The forest was unnaturally quiet that night. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, just an eerie, suffocating silence that wrapped around the camp like a thick fog. Ethan, Claire, Josh, and Mia had been planning this trip for months. A secluded camping experience miles away from civilization, deep within the Appalachian wilderness. A place with no cell service, no nearby towns, just the endless sea of trees. They were excited, but something about their chosen location felt wrong. As they set up camp near a small clearing, Claire noticed a crude wooden effigy hanging from a low branch. It was shaped like a man, tall, stick-thin, with arms stretched unnaturally long. "What the hell is that?" she asked, a nervous chuckle escaping her lips. Josh, always the skeptic, shrugged. Locals messing with hikers, trying to scare people off. Pretty lame, if you ask me. Mia, however, felt a chill crawl up her spine. Maybe we should camp somewhere else. Ethan, the self-proclaimed leader of the group, dismissed the idea. "Come on, guys, it's just some stupid legend. Slenderman, right? You really think some faceless giant is out here watching us?" The group laughed, uneasy laughter, but the moment passed. That was their first mistake. Something is watching. Night fell quickly. The fire crackled, casting long, dancing shadows on the surrounding trees. They sat in a circle, roasting marshmallows, trying to shake the unsettling feeling that had settled over the camp. Then came the static. Not from any speaker or device, just an inexplicable buzzing in the air, a high-pitched whine that made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. Mia was the first to notice the figure. At the edge of the firelight, just beyond the tree line, something stood perfectly still. Too tall, too thin, featureless, watching. "Guys," she whispered, her voice barely audible. They turned. Nothing was there, just trees and darkness. Claire let out a nervous laugh. "Jesus, Mia, don't do that." But the feeling remained. The presence lingered. They decided to call it a night, retreating to their tents in pairs. Ethan and Josh in one, Claire and Mia in the other. The fire was left smoldering, embers glowing like dying stars, and then the whispers began. The vanishing tent Mia woke first. A whisper, soft and unintelligible, had pulled her from her sleep. She lay still, her breath shallow, listening. The forest was alive with the sound of wind, but something about it was wrong. It wasn't rustling leaves. It was voices low, murmuring, like someone speaking just out of reach. Words slipping through the cracks of reality. Then came the scraping, a long, slow drag of something sharp across fabric. Right outside the tent, Mia froze. Her body refused to move. She turned her head slowly toward Claire, only to see that her friend was already awake, wide-eyed with terror, her hand clasped tightly over her mouth. Something was outside. Shadow moved against the thin nylon of the tent. Too tall, too thin. Arms stretching unnaturally long. Mia held her breath. The scraping sound circled the tent, slow, methodical. It stopped directly at the entrance. Silence. Then, the zipper started to move, slowly, as if something was testing them. Mia didn't think. She screamed. Claire joined in, and the tent erupted in chaos as they scrambled backward, kicking at the entrance. The zipper stopped. Then, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, moving away. The girls burst out of the tent, panting, hearts hammering against their ribs. Josh and Ethan's tent was gone, not collapsed. Gone. The clearing where it once stood was now bare earth. No footprints, no sign of struggle, just emptiness. The two girls stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. "They're messing with us," Claire stammered. They have to be." Mia wasn't so sure. That was when they saw it. The figure, standing at the tree line, just beyond the glow of the dying fire, watching, tall, wrong, faceless. Claire grabbed Mia's wrist. "We have to go." Nowhere to run. They ran, blindly, desperately. Branches tore at their skin. The ground felt uneven beneath their feet. The whispers followed them, swirling in the wind, a sickening hum that vibrated through their skulls. They didn't stop until they reached the edge of a dirt road. Panting, hands on their knees, they turned back. The forest was silent. Nothing chased them. No sign of Ethan or Josh, no sign of their camp, just the endless looming trees. "Do we go back?" Mia whispered. Claire shook her head violently. "No, we find help." It took them hours to find a ranger station. The sun had begun to rise by the time they stumbled in, exhausted and delirious. They reported everything: the missing tent, the thing they saw, the whispers in the night. The rangers exchanged uneasy glances. They went to investigate, and what they found made no sense. There was no sign of their campsite, no sign of Ethan or Josh, not even the spot where their tent had been. It was as if they had never existed at all. The last message. A week later, Mia received a text message. It was from Ethan's number, but there were no words, just an image, a blurry photo of a dense forest. Barely visible, hidden between the trees, was a figure, tall, watching, and at the bottom of the screen, one phrase: "I can still see you." Before we continue, a warning. The stories you are about to hear are not for the faint of heart. They are whispers from the darkness, echoes of things best left forgotten. But if you crave the unknown, if you seek the truth hidden in the shadows, then join us. Like this video and subscribe to the channel. It may seem like a simple action, but in the realm of the unknown, every choice matters. And tonight, you might just wish you had stayed in the light. Story 2, The Silent Stalker. Some things in the woods are alive, some things are watching, and some things follow. It started as a joke. Matt, Sarah, and Jake weren't the type to believe in urban legends, much less fear them. Slenderman was just an internet myth, a creepypasta designed to scare kids. That's what they thought, until they entered the forest, until the silence set in, and until they realized they weren't alone. By then, it was too late, because once he finds you, he never stops watching. The bet that started it all. One night in the woods, no phones, no GPS, just old-school camping. Jake grinned as he packed his bag. Sarah rolled her eyes. And the point of this is to prove we're not scared of some internet boogeyman, Matt said, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. They had all grown up on the stories. Slenderman, the faceless figure, the thing that stalks you through the trees. But that's all it was. A story, something for kids to whisper about at sleepovers, something people made up for fun. So when the challenge came up, to camp in a supposedly haunted forest where people had gone missing, it was easy to laugh it off. But laughing wouldn't save them. The path that shouldn't exist. The hike started normal enough. They followed a marked trail deep into the woods, joking, teasing, and setting up camp before the sun dipped below the trees. As night fell, they gathered around a fire, the glow flickering against the dark trunks. Jake leaned forward, smirking. "So, anyone actually creeped out yet?" Sarah scoffed. "Please, it's just a normal forest." Matt grinned. "All right, Let's make it interesting." He pointed toward a narrow path barely visible in the undergrowth. "It wasn't on the map. It shouldn't have been there at all. We follow it," he said. "Just a little way, no turning back." Sarah hesitated. "What if it's private property?" Jake waved a hand dismissively. "Then we turn around. No harm, no foul." Matt grinned. "Unless he finds us first." The joke fell flat, but none of them wanted to be the coward, so they stepped off the trail and into something waiting for them. The carvings in the trees. The deeper they walked, the quieter it became. No crickets, no wind, just their footsteps crunching on the undergrowth. Then Sarah stopped. "Guys, look." She pointed at the nearest tree. Carvings covered the bark. Strange symbols, spirals, and tall, faceless figures with unnaturally long limbs. Jake chuckled nervously. "All right, that's creepy." Matt touched one of the markings. The wood felt wrong, cold. Then a snap. They all spun. Nothing, just shadows stretching between the trees. "Let's go back," Sarah whispered, but the path was gone. There was no way back. Just more trees and the feeling of being watched. The figure in the fog. They turned in circles, trying to find their way. Then Sarah gasped. A shadow moved, tall, too tall, standing just beyond the trees, watching. Matt lifted his flashlight, but there was nothing there. "Did you see that?" Sarah whispered. Jake swallowed hard. I think we need to keep moving." They walked faster, pushing through the thick undergrowth, but no matter how far they went, the feeling remained, and the figure kept following. The first to vanish. The trees blurred together. The darkness pressed in. Then a scream. Sarah turned. Jake was gone. "Jake?" Matt grabbed her wrist. "We have to keep going." "But," he shook his head, "we can't stay here." Because something was here with them. Something watching, waiting. Something that had taken Jake. And it wasn't done yet. The cabin that shouldn't exist. Through the trees, a structure loomed. Old, rotting, hidden. A cabin that shouldn't be there. They ran to it, throwing open the door, slamming it shut behind them. Darkness swallowed the room. Matt fumbled for his flashlight, then Sarah gasped. On the walls, carvings, the same symbols from the trees, and in the corner, a figure, Jake, standing perfectly still, back turned, unmoving. "Jake?" Sarah whispered. No response. Matt stepped closer. Jake tilted his head, a slow, unnatural movement. Then the whispering started. All around them, and from the shadows, something moved. The Silent Stalker. The door burst open. A shadow filled the doorway. Tall, unnaturally thin, arms too long, fingers stretched like claws. A blank face, no eyes, no mouth, and yet it was watching them. The air felt wrong. Matt couldn't breathe. Sarah whimpered. Jake turned, his eyes blank, empty. Then he walked straight toward the figure. Matt grabbed him. "Jake, stop!" But it was like he wasn't there anymore. Like something else had taken him, and the moment he stepped into the dark, he disappeared. "Run!" Sarah screamed. Matt grabbed her arm. "We have to go!" They ran, blind, terrified. Branches lashed at them. The whispers grew louder. No matter how fast they moved, he was always there. Standing, watching, waiting, and then Sarah stopped running. "Sarah?" Matt wheeled around. She stood frozen, her eyes empty, like Jake. Matt shook her. "Sarah, come on." But she just whispered, "He's here." And then she was gone. The one who escaped. Matt never stopped running. The trees blurred. Then a break in the trees. The road. He stumbled onto the pavement, gasping for air. The forest behind him was silent. No sign of Sarah. No sign of Jake. No sign of the thing that had taken them. The search teams found nothing. No footprints, no evidence that anyone else had been there, just Matt, alone. But he knew the truth, he felt it, even now. A presence, watching, waiting, because once he finds you, he never stops watching. Story 3. The Camper. who never left. Camping alone in the woods wasn't supposed to be terrifying. For years, Daniel had sought solitude in nature, escaping the noise of the city, the endless demands of daily life. He wasn't new to this. He had hiked countless trails, pitched his tent under the stars, and spent long nights warmed by the glow of a campfire, listening to the sounds of the forest. But this time was different. This time he wasn't alone, and by the time he realized it, it was already too late. The first night, Daniel had arrived in the late afternoon, hiking deep into the forest to find the perfect spot to set up camp. Wanted to be far from the usual trails, away from any other hikers. After an hour of walking, he found it, a small clearing surrounded by towering trees, their branches intertwining above like skeletal fingers. It was perfect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he lit a small fire, cooked a simple meal, and leaned back against his backpack, enjoying the peaceful silence. Then something changed. The night became too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just silence. A heavy, suffocating stillness that made his skin crawl. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just his imagination, but when he looked past the firelight into the darkness beyond the trees, something was there. Tall, motionless, watching, a figure just at the edge of the light. Daniel blinked, his breath catching in his throat, but in that split second, it was gone, vanished into the shadows. The symbols. The next morning, Daniel told himself he had imagined it. A trick of the firelight, exhaustion playing games with his mind. But then he saw the trees, strange symbols etched deep into the bark, long, thin figures, spirals, circles that seemed to twist if he stared too long. They hadn't been there when he arrived. A chill ran down his spine. Someone or something had been near his camp while he slept. He considered packing up and leaving, but he had come all this way. And besides, he wasn't the kind of guy who got scared so easily, right? So, against his better judgment, he stayed. The man with no face. The second night was worse. The silence returned, pressing against him like an invisible force. Then the whispers started, faint, distant, like voices carried by the wind. Daniel sat up, gripping his flashlight, his pulse pounding in his ears. He scanned the trees, searching for movement. Nothing. Then a shape, lurking just beyond the firelight. Tall. Too tall, limbs impossibly long, stretching unnaturally in the darkness. No face, just emptiness. A void where a face should be. Daniel's breath hitched. He couldn't move, couldn't look away. The whispers grew louder. Then the fire went out, plunging him into darkness. The chase, he ran, blinded by panic, crashing through the undergrowth, branches slashing at his arms. The whispers followed him, growing louder, closer. No matter how fast he ran, it was always there, just out of reach, lurking in the gaps between. Trees, moving without moving. He didn't know how long he ran before he saw it. A cabin, old, rotting, hidden deep in the woods. Without thinking, he stumbled inside, slamming the door shut behind him. Silence, only his ragged breathing. For a moment, he thought he was safe. Then, a shadow passed by the window. Something was outside, watching, waiting, and it wasn't alone. The end of the trail. The whispers seeped through the walls, growing, twisting, burrowing into his mind. He squeezed his eyes, shut, clutching his head. "It's not real," he muttered. "It's not real." But when he opened his eyes, the door was open, and the faceless figure was inside. Reaching, everything went black. The aftermath. They found Daniel's camp a week later. His tent was still there, his supplies untouched, but Daniel was gone. No footprints, no signs of struggle, as if he had never been there at all. The search teams combed the area for days. They found nothing. But the rangers, they knew better. They had heard the stories, they had seen the symbols, they had found the bones, and they knew one thing for certain. Daniel was not the first, and he would not be the last. Somewhere, deep in the woods, the Slender Man waits. Story 4. The Forest That Calls. Some places were never meant for people. Some places call to you, not with words, but with silence, with shadows, with something unseen, yet always watching. When Eric, Dana, and Lucas set off on their weekend camping trip, they didn't know they had chosen one of those places. By the time they realized the truth, it was already too late, because once you hear the forest calling, it never lets you go. The forgotten trail. The drive took longer than expected. Eric's plan was to reach the campsite before sundown, but the old back roads were slower than he'd thought. By the time they arrived at the designated parking area, the sun had already begun its descent behind the trees. Dana checked the map. "We've got about a 2-mile hike to the spot," Lucas groaned. "Can't we just camp near the car?" Eric rolled his eyes. "Come on, man, it's supposed to be an adventure." The three of them grabbed their packs and set off into the woods. The path was clear at first, a well-worn dirt trail marked by faded signs. But then they found the other path. It branched off from the main trail, barely noticeable beneath the overgrown brush. There was no sign, no markers, just a narrow, winding trail that cut deep into the trees. Eric hesitated. "This isn't on the map," Dinah frowned. "Maybe an old logging route." Lucas grinned. Only one way to find out. Against their better judgment, they followed it, and with every step, the forest grew quieter. The carvings in the trees, they set up camp in a small clearing surrounded by towering pines. As Lucas gathered firewood, he froze. Something was carved into the bark of a nearby tree. Symbols, circles, spirals, and figures with impossibly long limbs. He called the others over. Dana traced her fingers over one of the markings. "What is this?" Eric shifted uneasily. "Some kind of old folklore thing?" Lucas smirked. "Or maybe some backwoods cult?" He was joking, but the way the trees stood, too straight, too still, made it feel less like a joke. That's when the wind stopped, the leaves, the branches. Everything became still, like the forest itself was listening, watching, waiting, the figure in the fog. The fire crackled. They sat around it telling stories, laughing, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over them. Then Dana stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes locked on something beyond the firelight. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Eric followed her gaze into the darkness. Nothing, just trees wrapped in shadows. Lucas leaned closer. "What did you see?" Dana hesitated. I don't know. It was tall, really tall, and pale." Eric laughed nervously. Probably just a trick of the light. But Dana didn't laugh, and the feeling of being watched only grew stronger. The disappearance. Sometime in the night, Eric woke up. At first, he wasn't sure why. Then he noticed Lucas's tent was open and empty. Lucas. Silence. Eric grabbed a flashlight and stepped into the cold night air. The fog had rolled in, thick and suffocating. He scanned the campsite, no sign of Lucas. Then footsteps, slow, unsteady, coming from the trees. "Lucas," Eric called. A shadow moved just beyond the fog. Tall, too tall, its limbs too long. It didn't walk, it glided. Eric's breath caught in his throat. Then just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. And so was Lucas. The voices between the trees. Eric woke Dana. "We need to go, now." They grabbed their packs and started back toward the trail. But the fog had changed everything. The path was gone. The trees all looked the same, twisting together, closing in around them. Then the whispers began. Soft, indistinct, coming from everywhere. Dana's grip tightened on Eric's arm. "Tell me you hear that." Eric swallowed hard. "We need to keep moving." They pressed on, the voices growing louder, overlapping, swirling in the fog. Then they saw him, Lucas, standing in the distance, unmoving, face hidden in shadow. "Lucas!" Dana ran toward him. Eric grabbed her wrist. Wait, but as she got closer, Lucas tilted his head, like a puppet on invisible strings, and from the shadows behind him, it stepped forward, tall, featureless, limbs stretching impossibly long, watching, waiting. Then, Lucas vanished, and the thing in the shadows moved. Run. Eric didn't think, he ran. Dana screamed, but he grabbed her hand, yanking her along. The whispers turned to screams. Branches snapped, shadows shifted. The thing was following them, always just behind them. No matter how fast they ran, it never rushed. It just appeared between the trees. At the corner of their vision, moving without moving, the fog swallowed them. Dana tripped. Eric turned to help her up and saw the arms reaching out from the fog, wrapping around her, pulling her back into the dark. She screamed, and then silence. The forest always wins. Eric kept running. Branches tore at his skin. His lungs burned. Then a break in the trees. The road. He stumbled onto the pavement, gasping for air, but when he turned back, the fog was gone. No trees, no whispers, no sign that the forest had ever been there at all. The search teams found nothing. No signs of Dana, no signs of Lucas, no signs that anyone besides Eric had ever been in those woods. But Eric knows the truth. He hears it every night. The whispers, the footsteps, the forest calling to him. Because once you hear it, it never lets you go. Some say Slenderman is just a story, a modern-day boogeyman created to frighten us, but legends don't come from nowhere. For every myth, there's a whisper of truth. The woods are vast, endless, and full of things we were never meant to see. If you ever find yourself camping deep in the forest, and the air suddenly feels too still, and the silence too loud, do yourself a favor. Don't look into the trees. Don't follow the whispers. And most importantly, if you see something tall, faceless and watching, run, because once you see him, he never forgets you.